This video, we're going to be covering the stair tool. The stair tool can be a little overwhelming at first. So let's jump in here and see that, like many of the objects and elements in ArcCAD, we have lots and lots of choices, gives us lots of functionality. It takes lots of care to use it well. So let's understand how the stair tool works. So the stair tool is an intelligent object that is trying to help us make sense of our stairs. The first tab here is overall stair dimensions. So this is the general width, general number of steps, the riser height that it's going to try to use, the run, the angle. Let's go ahead and make this square for now. What it's going to, is it going to be a winder with equal runs, a winder with equal angles, a landing. So this is our general information. Then these are our rules that it's going to try to abide by to make decisions in how to lay the steps out. So these are our min and max. I'll say go down to 5. This is code maximum. The automatic landing length we're saying is 310. Let's make this 3'4". Walking line is 1 foot. Where it goes around the winder, that's where it's going to determine the rise and run. Headroom offset 6'8". Those are our rules, so we can set those up, and then we can kind of just close that up and not worry about them anymore. And then we have these parameters, and this is what it's trying to do. So in this particular case, it's trying to go from the first story to the second story. So if we just do a straight run, this would get us up from 0 to finished floor height. So let's take a look at that. So there's our stair, and that's one way to get upstairs would just be go to straight up, straight run. Now, a couple things here. We can start with a riser, or we can start with a tread. So here we end with a riser. You saw, maybe you didn't, this is the riser. So that to this point would get us to the second floor. If we want there to be a full riser there, or full tread, then we click that. Same thing here. We want a full tread here, riser at the top. I think that's probably the most common approach. This will go right up to your floor slab with that riser, and here we want a full tread sitting on the first floor. So let's try to understand what happened here. This blue line is our reference line. It's very much like the reference line in your walls, and we can locate it either center, left, or right, and then we can do, for the left and right, we can do an offset. So we'll just keep it off to this side for now. That's fine. If, however, we want to adjust the boundary, we can select the boundary. We can use our polygon tools to adjust what the stair looks like. The geometry of the stair, the steps, the rise and the run, everything are all given to us by this reference line. And the treads and the risers are always perpendicular to that line, but we can control what happens to the boundary. And we have, plenty of choices here. I mean, any choice really. We can arc this out, make it more subtle. Each one of these is just going to change the cut edge boundary of the stair without changing the underlying geometry of the stair. If we want to change stair and how it's going to work, then we jump and start modifying the reference line. So here we have inside radius. Let's select the boundary. Maybe we want to bring this out so it's parallel to the riser. We could use some construction geometry to make sure those are parallel. This is where it's calculating the rise and run along this edge, and then this is the boundary. So they're very distinct, and it's important to understand how they interrelate. Because this boundary can be anything. So the boundary is going one direction, the stair run is going another direction. It's actually kind of an interesting design I might use. And then if we want to straighten that out, we can straighten that out. Let's rotate this back to vertical. So you got to click on this edge. Let's see. Click on the corners, I guess. So that you can get back to get the boundaries selected so you can modify the boundaries. So you got to pay attention to what you're operating on. Now, if you want to put a break in the stair, I put a node here. And that gives us a landing, and I can rotate reset the boundary. And now with that boundary reset, I can go ahead and put a turn in the stair. And it gives me a landing. Bring this down. As it loses a step in the bottom run, it adds a step to the top run. Now, if I want to control the steps at the boundary, there's that, when you hit the corner node, different pet palette option shows up, and we can fix these. So I like to use 2 inches. We'll apply this just to this turning, just to this corner. Now the distance from here to here is exactly 2. So that's a real subtle and important feature that you have to know to go find. You can also set this up as a minimum. So as I drop this down, once it hits the minimum, it'll bring that tread up and around. Boom, boom, boom. And then it hits the minimum, pops it up. Okay. And you can keep putting nodes in here. Turn that around. And so now we have a stair that turns the corner. Now, if we select not the node in the corner, but the actual edge, we can tell it what type of segment that is. So we want flights. We want to put a step right in the middle. And here we have minimum 4 inches and 4 inches, minimum 5 inches. So let's make sure these are the same. same minimums, hit OK. So if I wanted to make this a landing, then that section becomes a landing. I can adjust it. Make this 0 inches. And that control, now I have direct control of where that landing stops. So I have information on the nodes. I can use the pet palette for that. I get to the edge. I have this tool. And let's see what this one does. This one lets me just drag that point, and it'll add and subtract treads top and bottom, as you can see. And remember, we had this basic stair at 3'8". So now if we go back in here, we can kind of see, oh, okay, 3'8". This is the number of treads. These are some different options. So when I did that, it removed a couple treads because I chose these are the options that exist between the max and the min that I offered it. And I go, oh, let's do this tread here. And boom, it adds the steps. I can hit here. I can add, subtract. If I want to get rid of this segment, let's bring that up here. So it works very similarly to all of the other tools in ArchiCAD. And I believe exactly. So I can use the pencil tool and add, it's another way to extend my nodes. So I can have a twisty, windy stairs and have a lot of control. Notice that this turning, let's see if, so in the outside corners where it's not my reference line, let's see if this will still control the other side. Yep, it did. That's great. So this distance here is 4 inches. So really works pretty well once you understand how to manipulate it. So now let's do some other things with this stair. So now we decide on if we want a structure or not. So the structure is the underlying framing or substance to the stair. We could just have finish and no structure. And then we just get treads and risers. And we can have treads and risers, just risers, or just treads. So let's look at each one of these independently. We have 4 different fundamental structures for our flight and the same for our landings. We can have a center beam, we can have cantilever treads, we can have just the stringers. Once we make our general choice, then we can go into the parameters of that choice. So we choose structure. So let's do monolithic. Then we can go into the monolithic choices. We have our pen settings. We have outlines. These are our uncut lines. These are our cut lines. We have our materials. We have surface overrides. So let's take those off so it's all concrete. We have our connections. So each one of these connections is different. And we can have different settings. And make modifications to the risers. So this is something you just have to conscientiously, deliberately work through and understand. The drains is kind of an interesting thing. It has a little drain slot off to the side. I don't know that we'll use that very often, but it's there if we need it. Some of this stuff, renovation status, that sort of thing. So if we had a concrete stair, we probably wouldn't have a finish. The finish is another layer of material applied. And then we have to go through our landing and do something similar. The landing and the flight would probably have same parameters. And that's going to give us this concrete stair system. Here we have our riser. Go to our flight, connections. Not sure why that riser is so tall. But the stair looks right. Oh, that's because that is, well, doesn't even look like one more tread. Let's see. Okay, because the top of this has some adjustments here. So let's take these out. So that was making these adjustments so that it could integrate into some other structural system. So some playing around with this is probably necessary because I'm still a little confused why we have that headed up there. Anyhow, that gives you a great place to start. So here's beams and stringers. Do the beams first. So we select the method. Then we go into the details. Three beams. Let's say we want these to be or 15 1/4 by 1 1/2. Want the building to be framing wood framing, floor framing. And we have control of this. We want to get rid of those clips. This is our thickness below. So let's say we have 7 inches below there. And we want to change, get rid of this clip. And if we turn the finish on, we can kind of see what's happening here. So we have 3 beams that are rectangular shape with wood floor with a wood building material. We got rid of the little standoffs. This would be good for concrete treads. These plates just give us the option to put some hardware on. The representation's a little funky. Not sure it's worth including because I think it's a little confusing. And so that is what this looks like. We also have these choices. So I think we want to actually use this open stringer. And now we can do now it looks more like joist stringers, or stringers rather, that we'd make out of 2x material, 8 inches below the notches. Wood framing. This allows you to adjust exactly where those stringers are. Here you can adjust what these connections look like. Now we'll go to the landing. And our landing, we want to do beams here as well. Then go to the landing. 1.0 inches. 5.5 inches. 2x6. Floor framing. Number of beams. 3. And let's see. So we have 3. Match riser width to left of boundary. Match riser width to the boundary. Offset beam 1. It's a little complicated, I have to admit. Beam 1 offset. Beam 2 offset from the left. Beam 3. From the right. It's going to be important to take your time, and so I think that's the Y offset that's causing that problem. Take your time, understand what you're doing, and set up a standard, because you don't want to do this over and over. It's a little tricky. Then we go back to our finish. Our treads are made out of wood stain grade. Riser, let's make that where's my wood paint grade. Override the surface, make this white paint. This is the geometry of the materials over the top. These are some offsets for glue or whatever you need to put on there. And here, so this wants to be 1 inch. This can be 0. It can be a 1 inch nose. And there's our paint grade material on the front. There's our stringers. The one thing it doesn't do well is it doesn't represent the plywood, and because normally we put plywood over our stairs and then we put our finish. So you'll have to kind of consider that when you're modeling this. And there's some issues in here. So nonetheless, let's kind of keep going. So that's all of this part. And the dreaded floor plan representation. So first of all, you can set it up so that it can be globally modified with model view options. And that's probably not a bad idea if you have a lot of stairs in a project. You just have a couple. Maybe you want to control these things independently. So here's our symbol overrides. Let's not use those yet. So here's grid and structure. So the contour line is this brown line. The going is the direction arrow. We want to show that or not. And if we do, what the line types are. There's our arrow. We can fill it. Hidden part. So this is the part that's above the break line. Make this a dash line. Dash line. A lighter pen. So the going lines guess are the front of the tread. And we can do a fill. So anyways, go through this and that's your grid. Then you have your structure. Visible part of your structure. Okay, so now we control the, there's a lot to control. Then what the structure is. So here we're saying this, what we want the structure to look like. Once it's hidden. Visible parts only. We do the same thing with the break line. So it's really important to, I have this line and this line. Very, very important to take some time and set this up once, and don't do this all the time because this is really, here's the walking line. The shown part, the hidden part. We want to number our treads. We have a whole new way to represent this for a reflected ceiling. So finally, you get this hopefully to be something that you prefer. Then you're going to want to save this and either make it a something you can copy and paste from, or set up a favorite, or do something so you don't have to mess with that all the time. here we can get to edit, and there's one more layer of items we can do to this stair. So we can also select individual elements when we go into the edit mode. Let's say I want to enter edit mode, and I can now have control over each one of these elements independently. So this tread and this tread alone, or every other tread, I can adjust their shape. And I have go to edit mode, select the tread. And also do the same. I believe. Can't remember what that does. This, which one you can do some multiple selecting. Let's see. Okay, now I've got control over this tread. So I can go out. This top note seems to. That was a reset, I believe. Once I pull this, do something different to it. I want to reset it. Click that. I want to reset this. Let's see if it has a edit mode and set. So each one of these, I can now get to things and modify them independently. Even this. I don't know exactly what I can do with everything, but so now I have these treads. Treads are selected for the structure for the landing. I had to do a little research to see if I have any control over. I don't feel like I can do it. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop with the stair tool. And explore. Something tells me that there's even more that we can do with it, but at least you can get a basic stair in. You can make it look like what you want. You can control its position and plan. You can control how it looks. And there's a lot to it. Once you get it set up, keep it set up. All right. Thanks for watching.